Hey everyone, and welcome to Hooked on Needles and Crafts. Today we're going to be doing another Annie's Crochet Afghan Block of the Month Club. For my returning subscribers, thank you so much for tuning in. And for my new viewers, please consider subscribing, share, hit that like button, leave a comment below, and click on that notification bell for future videos. So today, you guys, we are doing another block off of this instructional booklet. If you have not catched this series, it's by Annie's. They have projects on their website, and it's more than just crochet. There's other crafts there as well. And they break them down into separate kits for you to do, and you can set the frequency to once a month or twice a month. So I've already collected all of these last year, and I'm finally getting to it now. So every time I open a packet, it's going to be a different instruction. So this week we're doing blocks 10 through 12. Today we're going to be doing block 12. If you have not experienced Annie's yet, so each project has a certain number of kits. This one I believe has 10 or 11. The first kit that you get, which is, by the way, I don't know if they're all the same price or if the first one, I got mine on a Black Friday, so my first kit was super cheap, but every kit that I've received after was approximately, with shipping and tax, $27 and some change. The first kit you get, you'll receive 2 size crochet hooks, 2 baggies of stitch markers in different colors, and I can't remember if you get like a sewing needle packet or anything like that. And then it comes with a first set of spools of yarn along with the first booklet. I feel like when they send them to you, they're not in number order, so you don't need to bank on that, but at the same time, that part doesn't matter because you just have to build each block individually, and then you can come back in and put them all together. So it really doesn't matter what block you start with. Now, the thing that I like about this, and it's probably the only thing that I like about Annie's in terms of instructions, or at least the concept of the kit, is that each block is going to be a pattern with a certain set of stitches that you do over and over again per row. So you end up practicing those stitches in that pattern for that amount of time, and you can use that experience to go into other kits if you choose to. Not necessarily on Annie's, but in general, because by repetition, I always say, is the best way to learn crochet and to get it down pat. Otherwise, it is a little expensive. I think if you were to buy the blanket already made, and then it's 100% handmade, you are going to pay that much money for it. I remember, when I was little, I'd want to buy one because those are too long to make, and they would be in the couple hundreds of dollars. So I just thought that was crazy, but you're paying for a skill. You're not necessarily paying for the function of a blanket. Alright, so now let's get into this. Due to copyright, I cannot share the information in this instructional booklet. If you do want to make this Afghan, I highly recommend that you go out to Annie's and you check out their website. So what I do on my channel is I teach you how to read the instructions and understand them, and then I also break down new stitches at least 3 times step by step, and thereafter I go my normal pace. If you need to speed up or slow down the video, there's a gear button in the corner. There's playback options to go fast or slow. If you don't need to hear me talk, you can lower the volume on your device and click on the CC closed caption button. Now, for every kit after you get the instructional booklet and I've been getting right now 3 spools of yarn because I'm doing 3 blocks at a time. I think I saw a kit that I received that only had 2 blocks. So anyway, today we're going to be working with Biscotti, and the yarn that they use I think is really nice. They use Premier yarn. If you don't have any experience with Premier yarn, it's a bit of a high quality yarn. This type of yarn they have is exclusive to Annie's, so you won't be able to find this in the store, but it's anti-pilling. And that's a good thing too, because you always get the pilling over time, especially when you're washing you know, your project over and over again like a blanket. Alright, so what I like to do first is find the outside end. Sometimes they tuck it inside to keep it from accidentally getting pulled. So you just want to locate that. I think that they didn't do that in this case, or maybe they did. Yeah, I don't think they did that. I think it's already tucked into the band. So any of this loose stuff, I'm just going to hide behind the band. The reason why we don't want that end piece is because if you start with that end piece, and it's usually easy to find, and it's tempting to just use that piece, you'll end up having to remove the band, and when you pull it, it'll start rolling around as you pull it, and that's annoying. So what I like to do is go into the spool and try to find the inside end. Sometimes it'll be right there. I think in the last video we got so lucky it was just sitting right there. But sometimes it doesn't. Okay, here, I found it. They usually stick in one end and tuck it in to prevent it from just laying around and someone pulling on it. So again, I'm going to stick this behind the band because I don't want to use it. Alright, then I'm going to go back into this end and I'm going to try to find the inside end. Alright, if you cannot find the other end, we are going to take a random piece. Let me see, I want to go on this side. This was a looser side. If you can't find the other end, we're going to grab a random piece. And this is where it might get a little scary, but I'm just going to pull a chunk out. Sometimes you're pulling a huge chunk, which is a little scary. Sometimes you pull a little chunk out. Either way, you want to pull the big or small chunk out to find that other end. So this is like a small to medium chunk. I'm going to put this the spool over at the side. The idea is when you keep pulling, and you can put a light paperweight on it, you can keep pulling, it's not rolling around. Here, if you want to see. See, so that's what it looks like. And that's, I love doing it that way. This stays in place, you don't have to worry about it rolling around. But yeah, for this stuff, you can just untangle it. So that we get the other end, and then we can start working the project. So when we start these projects, for this one in particular, we have to do a cast on with a slip knot. That's basically getting a loop onto the hook. And I'm going to show you how to cast on with a slip knot without having to use a hook at all. Because sometimes that can be a little, you know, I've had comments with people saying they have difficulty with it. So what you're going to do is take one end of your yarn. We're going to take our ring, pinky, and thumb and hold the very end of that yarn. Then take your index and middle finger and hold it apart like this. This side you're going to hold very tightly. This part you're going to hold a little loosely. Then you're going to take two fingers and we're going to push this up. So push up, turn down to get a big loop. Then you're going to take your middle finger and index finger and we're going to grab the feeder yarn and you're going to pull it through the loop to create a huge knot. So now we just have to tighten up the knot. And how you do that is we're just going to pull on this feeder yarn. So when you're pulling on the feeder yarn, just make sure you kind of pull it as close to your thumb as possible because we're trying to minimize the amount of yarn waste. So I'm just going to pull this, tighten up my knot. So however you tighten up your knots, you don't have to do it my way. But just to make sure the knot is nice and snug, I'm going to take the tail end and I'm just going to pull that a little bit. You don't have to pull it too tight. And that's going to be your knot. So now we have to make this loop a little smaller, enough to fit a crochet hook. So take your feeder yarn here and we're just going to slowly pull it. Put some pressure on that knot. And just pull it until the loop is small enough to fit your crochet hook and we're going to be working with the right hand. And so for this instruction, it's saying to use the larger hook first. So I've got my large hook. We're going to slip this in to the loop. I'm going to gather up some feeder yarn, and we're just going to get ready with row 1. So after that bit of work we just did, we have a little section, so I like to break them down between commas, just so that I can focus at one piece at a time. It can get very overwhelming, try to read everything at once. So first bit says that we're going to be working some chains, CH, so I'm going to show you how to do a chain. So you're going to stabilize your project by holding the knot down. So now we've stabilized our project. We can take our feeder yarn and we're going to yarn over the hook, and that's abbreviated as YO. They don't really abbreviate it here in this instruction, but oh yeah, they do. Yep, it's in the special stitch section I just saw. Okay, so YO is a yarn over, and we're basically going to take the feeder yarn and put it over the hook. So yarn over, and we're going to pull this yarn over through the loop. So hook it and then pull it through this loop, and that's going to create a chain stitch. So as you can imagine, the chain stitch is one of the simplest stitches that you can do in crocheting. If we look closely, a chain stitch consists of 3 loops. We have one on this side, one on the other side, and then if you turn it on its side, you have the back hump right here. Alright, so let's do another one. We're going to yarn over YO, which is taking the feeder yarn and putting it over the hook. Then we're going to take the yarn over and pull it through the loop. So hook it and then pull it through the loop, creating a new chain stitch. So now you should have 2. Again, it's made up of 3 loops. We have 1 loop here, 1 loop on the other side here, and then we flip it on its side, and this loop here is the back loop. I call it the back hump. Alright, one more time, you guys. So we're going to yarn over YO, which is taking the yarn and putting it over the hook. Then we're going to take the yarn over and pull it through this loop. So hook it and pull it through the loop, creating a chain stitch, CH. So now if you can take a look at the top view here, we have 3 chain stitches. Each chain stitch is made up of 3 loops. You have 1 on this side, 1 on this side, turn it on its side, and this one right here is the back hump. Now again, on the top view, it's starting to look like a braid, doesn't it? So if you're a beginner, I would practice making chains over and over again. You can easily unravel it by removing your hook and pulling on the feeder yarn, but that's where you start. Just keep practicing making chains, and the goal is to make them uniform, because as a beginner it's going to be all different sizes. Alright, so now that I've shown you how to do the chain stitch at least 3 times step by step, you can go ahead and rewind this part of the video as many times as you need until you're comfortable doing chain stitches on your own. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward with completing the remaining chains for these instructions, and then we're going to come back in. I'll show you what to do next. Alright, once you've completed all the chains, it's in best practice to count your stitches to make sure that you're on track with the stitch count. Okay, And once you've confirmed that you have the right amount of stitches, let's move on to the next part of the row 1 instructions. So we're going to learn how to do a new stitch, and here it's called DC, which stands for double crochet stitch. And the next part of this instruction is pretty universal in the crochet world, so I can talk about numbers in this section. So when we do stitches off of a chain of stitches, we have to start the next row. But what you have to do first is build the height of the row. So in this case, it's telling you that we're going to do a double crochet stitch in the 4th chain from the hook. And the reason for that is because a double crochet stitch is 3 chains high. So again, that's a universal thing, and you can keep that knowledge with you in other kits as well. Okay, so we're going to count 4 chains from the hook. You're not going to count the loop that's already on the hook. We're going to count the actual chain stitches away from the hook. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to put our hook into this 4th chain, and we're going to stick it into the back hump, these back humps here, just because I love to retain the braid. That's going to help you in the end when we're doing the edging. So now we're going to learn how to do a double crochet stitch. So what we're going to do is yarn over, and then we're going to put our hook into that 4th chain back hump right here, and then we're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull up a loop, so we have 3 loops. Then you're going to yarn over, and we're going to pull through 2 loops, and then we're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull through those 2 loops. So again, this 3 chains is actually a double crochet stitch. It's the height of the double crochet stitch. And in the parentheses of the section that we just did, it says that the first 3 chains is going to count as the first double crochet stitch. So what I'm going to do here also, grab your stitch marker. Okay, I have different colored ones. I think, like I said, the original kit gives you 2 packets of 2 different colors. I had green and orange. So I just figured this out after doing all of these blocks in the last video, that it's probably best to use one of the colors. You can use one of the colors to indicate the top 3 chain, and then save the other color for later when we repeat rows. Okay, so whatever you decided to do, take your stitch marker. We're going to slip this underneath the 2 loops, not the back hump. So if you remember the pieces that we said made up a chain, the 3 loops, we're going to go with this one on the side, this one on the other side. We're going to avoid that back hump, but you want to make sure you're not splitting your yarn, so you can tell if you can see through that chain there. If you can, it means you're good, you didn't pierce the yarn. We can close this up, and this is going to indicate the top of the first double crochet stitch. And we're going to explain what that means when we get to row 3, or row 2 actually. But anyway, so let's move on to the next section. Alright, so this is where it's going to get a little easier, the fact that it's the same stitch, and I'm going to show you how to do the double crochet stitch at least 2 more times. So yarn over, we're going to go into the next stitch, back hump. So right here, we're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull up a loop, so you have 3 loops. Then we're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull through those 3 loops. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. Sorry, that was 2 loops before, not 3. Anyway, this is the second double crochet stitch. Let me show you how to do it one more time, preferably with the right number that I say. Okay, so yarn over, put your hook into the next stitch, back hump, Okay, then we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop, so we have 3 loops, then yarn over and we're going to pull through 2 loops, and we have 2 loops left, yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. So now that I've shown you how to do double crochet stitches at least 3 times step by step, you can rewind this part of the video as many times as you need until you're comfortable doing double crochet stitches on your own. But I'm going to finish the rest of the stitches for this row, and then we're going to, I'll show you how to turn. But really quick, because we're using the back hump, check this out. So if you look at top view, you have that nice braid. Okay, and then when you flip it upside down, because we've been using the back hump, you still have that nice braid. So that's why I do it. But anyway, all right, so I'm going to get more yarn around my finger, and I'm going to do this in silence. Alright, so I finished the end of the row. What I'm gonna do is add a stitch marker here, just because I want to mark the end of the last stitch of every row. This is going to in turn help us later. Again, you can try to use different colors, so maybe you can use the top of the third chain and the use the same color for both. When we repeat rows later on in the instruction, you can switch color. But anyway, so after you complete all of the stitches in this row, it tells you to turn. And what we're going to do is just turn the project from this side to this side. So I just turned it from the back. That way you can just see how I did that. But because you always need stitches on the left in order to start a new row. Alright, so let's do round 2. Now for round 2, we have in some bold lettering some chains, and in parentheses we have C pattern notes. And we're basically, what's that basically saying is that we're building the height of the row, because we're probably working with double crochet stitches. So I said earlier, 3 chains make the height of a double crochet stitch, so we're going to do 1, 2, 3 chains, and this is universal, and this is going to be forever throughout the instructions. So again, I'm going to take a stitch marker and place it at the top of the third chain so that I know where to put my hook when we do the third row, because this is going to be a double crochet stitch. This counts as a double crochet stitch. Alright, so in the next set of instructions, we are going to learn a new stitch, and we are going to be doing a puff stitch, and in parentheses it says see special stitches. So this section pretty much tells you how to do the stitch. I'm going to show you how to do a puff stitch, and again, these are stitches that you can take onto other kits that you end up using, whether it's a kit or a booklet. A puff stitch is pretty much the same, almost the same, sometimes you know, almost like a chain or double crochet stitch that we've been doing. But yeah, let me show you how to do a puff stitch. So we're going to yarn over, and we're going to put our hook into the next stitch. So now this is alright, so we're going to put it into the next stitch here. Then we're going to yarn over, and we're going to pull up a long loop, preferably to keep your hook parallel to the row. Alright, because we're building this up to the height of the row. See how it's a little bit over exaggerated? My hook is pretty much parallel to the row. Alright, so now let's work with brackets. I'm going to explain what a bracket means. So a bracket is pretty much repeating every instruction inside that bracket, and your instructions will tell you how many times you repeat it. But so we don't get overwhelmed, let's focus on each section within this bracket. Again, I like to focus on everything in between commas. So the first part is yarning over. Then we're going to put the hook into the same stitch that we just used. So put your hook right in here. Then we're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull up a loop, and that's pretty much the bracket. Alright, but now we're going to repeat the bracket. So start over from the beginning of the bracket. We're going to yarn over, and then we're going to put our hook into the same stitch we just used. Then we're going to yarn over, and we're going to pull up a loop, again in line with all the other loops. It's going to be a long one. And then we're going to yarn over and we're going to pull through all the loops off the hook like so. Okay, see how it's creating this little puff? And then the last part of the instruction is to do a chain. So yarn over and pull through the loop. So now that was a lot. You know, it's okay if you didn't quite get that the first time. I am going to show you how to do it 2 more times. But let's go back to the row 2 instruction and see what it has us doing next. So after we do that puff stitch, we do have another set of brackets in row 2. So let's break that down section by section. So we're going to do some chain stitches. So go ahead and do those. All right? And then we're going to learn what SK is. So SK means skip stitch. So we're going to skip some stitches. And so for this section, skip the number of stitches that it tells you to skip. And then now we're going to learn a new stitch, which is SC, which stands for single crochet stitch. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So don't forget, you have to skip the stitches they told you to skip. And let's learn how to do a single crochet stitch. So stick your hook into the next stitch that it tells you to. Then we're going to yarn over and you're going to pull up a loop so that you have 2 loops. And then you're going to yarn over and we're going to pull through those 2 loops. So that is a single crochet stitch. Alright, so for the next section in this bracket, we have to do another set of chains. So go ahead and do that. And then in the next section, we have to again skip a number of stitches. Alright, and then in the next section, we're doing another puff stitch. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Alright. So we're going to yarn over and we're going to put our hook into the next stitch. Don't forget to skip your stitches. Then we're going to yarn over and you're going to pull up a loop long enough to make your hook parallel to the row. Then we're going to yarn over and you're going to put your hook into that same stitch. Then we're going to yarn over and you're going to pull up a loop again long enough to make your hook parallel to the row. Then we're going to yarn over and you're going to put your hook into that same stitch again, yarn over and pull up a long loop parallel to the row. Then we're going to yarn over and we're going to pull through all the loops off the hook. And last bit is to do a chain stitch. So here's your next puff stitch. Alright, so that completes the brackets, on row 2. Thanks. Sorry about that. We're going to repeat the brackets now for row 2, and it looks like it's taking us all the way to the end, and there's a few last bits of the instructions before we turn. So let's start over in our bracket. We're going to do some chains. We're going to skip some stitches and then we're going to do a single crochet stitch. So put it in the next stitch and we're going to yarn over. We're going to pull up a loop so we have 2 loops. Then we're going to yarn over and you're going to pull through those 2 loops. So that's a single crochet stitch. And then we're going to do another set of chain stitches. We're going to skip some stitches and then we're going to do our puff stitch. So yarn over, stick your hook into the next stitch. We're going to yarn over and you're going to pull up a loop long enough to make your hook parallel to the row. Then we're going to yarn over. You're going to put your hook into that same stitch, yarn over again, and pull up a loop so that it's parallel to the row. Then you're going to yarn over Stick your hook into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop so that it's parallel to the row, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through all loops off the hook and close it with the chain stitch. All right. So now that I've shown you how to do the puff stitch at least 3 times step by step, you can go and rewind this part of the video as many times as you need until you're comfortable doing the puff stitch on your own. But let's move on. We're going to do our chain stitches, and you can probably see the pattern that's going on now. So we're going to do that. We're going to skip some stitches. I'm going to do our last single crochet stitch together, you guys. So stick your hook into the next stitch. We're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull up a loop so you have 2 loops. Then you're going to yarn over and you're going to pull through those 2 loops. So that is our 3rd single crochet stitches. And now that I've shown you how to do that step by step, you can rewind this part of the video as many times as you need until you're comfortable doing single crochet stitches on your own. But now I'm just going to continue the remaining parts of the bracket, and then when we come back in, we're going to talk about the last bits of instruction before we turn. Okay, so for our last bit of instruction, we are doing a double crochet stitch, so go ahead and do that. But I wanted to show you, see how like when you get to the top 3 chain, the top 3rd chain, when we do this and it counts as a double crochet stitch, sometimes it gets really hard to see where to put your hook. But now that we've put a stitch marker in place, we can easily see where we're going to put in our hook, and then we can continue making our double crochet stitch. When you do those 3 chains, don't make them too tight because it's going to make it difficult for you to put your hook in. But now that we finished this end, again, I like to mark the very end of the last stitch of the row. And then we're going to turn, which is taking the project and just flipping it the other way. And now we can start our row 3. So for row 3, well, we're going to do a chain, and that's because in this case we're going to work with single crochet stitches. So when you're working with rows, it's more likely that we have to build the height of the row. So since we're doing single crochet stitches, the height for a single crochet stitch is 1 chain. So do a chain, and this is not going to count. This rarely counts as a stitch when you do a chain. Usually it's just ignored. It just builds the height. But now we're going to do single crochet stitches, and we're going to actually use the first stitch. So that's the stitch with the stitch marker in it. So put your hook into that first stitch, and we're going to do a single crochet stitch, and then just continue doing the number of single crochet stitches that it asks you to do. And then in the next sections, we're going to be doing we're going to be using a chain space to do stitches. So what that means, these are chain spaces. So we're going to be putting stitches in there. So go ahead and do your stitch in that chain space. Okay, and then the next section we have is doing some chains. So go ahead and do those chains. Okay. Then we reached a set of brackets. In this set of brackets, we are going to be doing single crochet stitches. Let's focus on the first part. So we're doing single crochet stitches in the next chain space. So this here is a chain space. We're going to do our single crochet stitch in here. Okay. All right. Now, after that is done, we're going to do some single crochet stitches into the next available stitch that we have, not the space. All right, so we do that, and then we're going to do another single crochet stitch in a chain space. Okay. And then we're going to do our chains, and that's the end of the bracket. So I've already shown you how to do stitches in a chain space at least 3 times. So I'm pretty much going to finish the rest of this bracket, the repeated brackets, the number of times that it tells me to, and then there's a last bit of instruction before the turn. All right, so let me do that in silence. Uh-oh. All right, almost moved ahead without you guys. Okay, so the last bits, we're going to be doing a stitch in the chain space. Then we're going to be doing single crochet stitches. Okay, so here's where we've marked. This doesn't make any sense at all. I think, let's see, hold on. Yeah, I guess so. All right, so we're going to be doing single crochet stitches on top of the puff stitch, and then where we have put our stitch marker on top of the third chain from that represents a double crochet stitch, you're going to stick your hook in there, and we're going to do a single crochet stitch. Okay, so again, that kind of makes it easier to find where you put your hook. I'm going to get another stitch marker, and we're going to mark the end of this row, and we're going to move on to round 4. So we'll just take this and turn. So now for row 4, we're doing the same thing. We're going to be doing the chains to make the height of the row. And then you're just going to take your stitch marker. We're going to mark the top of the third chain. Alright, and then the next bits, I'm going to get more yarn here. The next bits of row 4, we're going to be doing double crochet stitches. Okay, so go ahead and do your double crochet stitches. And then in the next sections, well, we have a bracket. So in the bracket, we're doing stitches and chain spaces, double crochet stitches, and we're gonna pretty much repeat that all the way across. So I'm going to do that in silence. Alright, just to pop in for a few seconds here, we are going to do row 5. So let's build the height of the row because we're going to be working with double crochet stitches. And I'm going to take my stitch marker and place this on top of the 3rd chain. Okay, make sure you're not splitting the yarn. Alright. And then for the rest of the instructions, we're just going to be doing double crochet stitches again. So I'm going to do this in silence, and when we come back, we're actually going to talk about the repeated rows. Alright, so I finished row 5. It was pretty simple, just like row 4. But now we're going to get into repeated rows. So this is where you can change the color of your stitch markers to indicate the end of each repeated row, so you can keep track of how many rows you've done so far, because it's so easy to forget, especially if you pause here and there. So this stitch marker here you can replace with the other color if you're doing 2 colors. This is going to indicate that we're going to do row 6, and we have to go all the way up to row 16. So I'm going to count my stitch markers. Again, I'm using different colors, don't worry about that, but you can stick with the 2 colors they gave you. So if this is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And I always like to double count. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so I know that every time I complete a row, I'm going to put these stitch markers at the end of the last stitch of each row. This is not to be confused with the stitch markers that we're going to use for top of the 3rd chain right here. Okay, so again, that's why it's good to use the 2 colors that they gave you, which is, let me know if it's green and orange. Mine were green and orange, but for me, I'm obviously using crazy colors. So anyway, so now that we've got that sorted out, for rows 6 through 16, we're pretty much going to repeat rows 2 through 5. Okay, and then it actually, it's in a bracket, so it actually tells you how many times we're going to repeat this. If you want, you can group up your stitch markers. But anyway, and it actually tells you which row we're going to end up with. So I'm going to do all of this in silence. You can always rewind the video back if you need a refresher. But when we come back in, it's going to be around 17, and we're going to be working the edges. Alright, so I've completed the last row here. After you complete the last row, we're not turning it, we're just going to rotate it. I did mark the last stitch of that row. Now I also, for this round 17, we have to divide up the stitches along the edge of our block here. So I've gone ahead and put stitch markers for that. Then we're also going to switch out to the smaller hook. So I'm going to just take out the big one, pick up the smaller one, and we're going to start round 17. So what we have to do is build the height. We're going to be doing single crochet stitches, so go ahead and do that. And then you're going to put in your single crochet stitches, and we're spreading them out evenly along the side here. A little tip to try to do is when you're doing any stitching on the end of the rows, to get at least 2 loops to work your stitch around. I believe that that makes a little sturdier and stronger stitch. So once I've got that done, we're going to rotate the block, and we have to do the corner. So in these corners you're going to do single crochet stitches, so go ahead and do that. I'm actually using one of the first stitches off of the very first chain stitches we did. Right, and then before we move on to the bottom edge of our block, I'm going to mark the end. First I'm going to remove these, not the last one here, but I'm going to remove all these inside stitch markers because we're going to need them for the other end. Plus we've already done these. We've already done this side, so you don't really need the stitch markers here anymore. Okay, I'm going to leave that last one there too. Now on this side, I'm going to mark the last chain stitch that we did here. Okay, so slip that in. Alright, then we're going to do this side here. And work your single crochet stitches. And because if you guys remember, we did the back hump, we retained this nice braid, so now it's actually easier to know where to put your hook, and you are getting 2 loops. So if you didn't do it that way, you might end up having only 1 loop to put your hook through. just double check my count here. Alright, so now that I have 2 sides down, we have 2 to go. I have to divide up this end here. I'm going to add my stitch markers. Alright, I'm going to do the remaining 2 sides in silence. When we come back in, I'm going to show you how to join and fasten off. Alright, so I finished both sides. Now I'm going to show you guys how to join. So to join, we're pretty much doing a slip stitch, and we have to find the first single crochet stitch we did. Now remember, when we started this side, we did a chain one and then we did a single crochet stitch. So we're going to skip this chain one and we're going to put our hook into the first single crochet stitch. Now to do a slip stitch, we're going to yarn over and you're going to pull through all the loops off your hook like that. And then to fasten off, we're going to cut about 1 inch or so of our feeder yarn. Then we're going to take our feeder yarn, we're going to yarn over, and we're going to pull that through the loop all the way out. And then we're going to pull on it to tighten up that loop into a knot. We can tuck this in when we put the blocks together, but that is pretty much it for our block today. This is block 12. So comment below, let me know how it went. Click that like button if you like what you're seeing so far. Click that like button if you are looking forward to doing your Annies or are currently doing it. At any rate, so we're gonna revisit the other kits down the road. Again, I'm gonna try to get this blanket done before the end of the year. I do have another Afghan with them. It's a Moroccan blanket, so we're gonna do that after this one, which is gonna be exciting. There's more colors, it looks a little more complicated, or maybe it just looks that way and it's not, but we'll find out. At any rate, thank you guys so much for watching. This is Hooked on Needles and Crafts. Please share, like, and subscribe for future videos, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.